Hi guys, can you please introduce yourselves?
Right, I'm Dan Simmons. I'm business analyst at the Massey IT department.
And I'm George Atkins. I'm a senior software developer at Massey IT.
Thank you. So I asked you guys to talk to me because you designed the Massey app. And I was just wondering if you could give us some background on how you decided that there was a need for this app.
Right, yeah, so the IT department had some time and money to spend doing mobile apps, and we'd already done a couple of mobile apps for other Massey departments, and people request stuff off us all the time, and one of the requests that came in was from the orientation team, and they had a thought that they could do a mobile app. So we just went along and talked to them about what they had, what they wanted it to be, and so on. And at the same time, the guys doing the mobile app, George and Simon, had been working on a prototype of what maybe you could put into a student app. So we sort of had a little bit of a background to it. I went along and talked to the orientation people, and we sort of put down some ideas, what we could do. And it formed into, it's a pretty solid idea, we'd do it. So we kicked off the project at that stage.
Got anything to add to it, George?
No, I think Dan pretty much covered it from the business side, and me and Simon just got on and developed what they're after.
So that was my next question. So what was the next step after the idea?
Yeah, well, normally in our sort of software projects, we will do a scope document, and then we'll do requirements and maybe a functional spec. So we'll spend quite a lot of time going into huge amounts of detail with the customers about what they want. So we think of the orientation guys as our customers, and we'll produce huge amounts of documents. But really, what we sat down next is we created a list of all the possible things that we could have in the app, all the features we could put in it. We got some really rough estimates of those, and we went through with the orientation guys and picked a set that we really knew was achievable, because we didn't want to miss the deadline of orientation in 2014, because that would have been pretty bad.
Definitely.
And then we did a really simple scope document that just had some mock-up screenshots of what maybe the app would look like. So we did that using Balsamiq mockups, which is a pretty cool, cheap tool for doing those. And we just skipped the step of doing detailed specs and requirements and stuff.
Okay.
And then, that gets signed off by the orientation people, and then that went up to Simon and George to do it.
Okay.
George, over to you. How easy was that?
like Dan was saying, was really agile in terms of, it wasn't a spec, formal spec written up, so we just worked with Dan and the business, obviously, developing functionality as we went. And basically, it was about 3 months of me and another developer, Simon Harden, getting into the coding, and then I guess it was cycles where do test releases, and then Dan and the other testers would test what we've done so far, and obviously.
Yes, we released it to test quite early, I think, didn't we? I mean, we released it to test earlier than we would a normal business application. And so the testers, when they first got it, had a lot of feedback on it. There's a nice way of putting it, but I think we knew that we had a really tight deadline. I mean, we would normally give ourselves a lot longer. Well, normally we don't have a very hard deadline unless there's some law change or new semester starting or something. So the testers got it quite early.
Yeah, so I was kind of completely developing it as we went, and start off with really basic functionality, and then added it's been ongoing, and obviously also worked on some bugs and things from testing. So each subsequent release, got better and better, and it was probably weekly releases, I think, the test really ended up being. Yeah, and so we had 2 testers at we're undertaking that testing on actual devices, and keep on going until we felt it was stable and enough functionality to hit that deadline date and get it out in time.
So, what skills did your team members have?
So there's me. I'm like an old-fashioned business analyst from way back, used to working on business systems and some web development sort of stuff. So I'm the business analyst. The customers really didn't have a lot of experience in mobile apps. One of the customers had worked on one of our previous apps. And then for George and Simon, this is their third app. And I mean, you guys have been doing coding for years. So how would you describe your skills, George?
Yeah, sure. Well, in terms of the mobile apps we create, they're some cross-platform hybrid apps using PhoneGap. So primarily the app itself, or the user interface logic is in HTML and JavaScript and CSS. That's, I guess, where the core skills for the actual app itself. And then we use a number of frameworks to help us with that, like jQuery Mobile and Knockout.js and also the Google Maps API and things. And then in terms of the back end for us, we use .NET development. So we use ASP.NET Web API sites to set up the data. So for our apps, it's HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and then .NET in the back.
And what?
Yeah, speaking for the testers who weren't there, I mean, we had 2 testers on it at various times, and I mean they're pretty good at developing a test plan, but one was also really smart with mobile technology and is quite sharp at that sort of thing. So he was very good at breaking it, I think, was Rob's main skill. When everyone else thought it was working fine, Rob would press 3 things at the same time, and there was another bug. And some of the other things that went on, there's sort of the usability aspect of it to make sure that you make an app that's easy to use, which I hope it was. And then behind the scenes, there's actually quite a lot of data that went into all of the points on the map that didn't previously exist at Massey. So we had to go out and try and find all these rooms, try and find all these buildings. I think there's around about 900 map points. Trying to link them to the computer lab system, trying to link them to the timetable system. So that came into it as well. And luckily, George and I both had prior knowledge of the timetable system, because that's a real pain in the butt. The timetable system at Massey is quite a powerful system, but it's strange. I think you need to know how it works to get anywhere with it.
Yeah, mind bender.
And after you got the requirements from your customer, did you go through an initial design stage? And did you have somebody separate to do the design stage, or did you all just put your heads together for the design stage?
Yeah, so I mean, I did some wireframe drawings in Balsamic, which were pretty naive. And then in terms of IT design, George, was there much? Was it pretty obvious?
Well, we use jQuery Mobile as a UI framework, so that has a number of sort of standard widgets and controls that we use, as well as a kind of general layout. So that gave us kind of a general format, and then obviously within the app itself, it was a case of going through, looking at how other apps do this, and just us sort of working with Dan and the testers, and coming up with a general design.
Yeah, so I mean, and there's lots of different aspects to the design as well. There's the usability and the user interface design of the app. There is the technical design, how what servers you can have in databases and things like that. We went to see the marketing guys just to sort of get out of jail free card to say, well, this is what it's sort of going to look like. please tell us it's not too horrible. You're going to let us go live with this. And they said, yep, that's fine. And they would get an actual sort of graphic design firm to do a later release of it. So we didn't have heavy involvement from graphic designers and, trying to design it down to the nearest sort of pixel and stuff, which was quite nice because it means that we could just sort of get stuck in and make an app that was functionality first and usability first rather than trying to look like a designer's mock-up. But I know that's coming, so we'll have another version of it some stage that is more designed from a design perspective.
Yeah. And then advertising. I know that the app is specifically based for Massey University students. Did you do any advertising?
Yeah, it's not ITS doesn't have the responsibility of advertising, but there was quite a bit done. So the app was designed. The reason for the app was the orientation 2014 first semester students. So that gave us a clear way to get to them. There's some emails that go out every year, to welcome the new people and tell them what they need to be doing at particular times. So they hooked into one of those emails that went out, and that certainly did create a big spike in downloads. There's also an internal staff email that goes around that mentioned the app, and that caused a smaller spike in downloads. And then as part of doing the app, you've got to go sort out your timetable in My Massey. And when you do that, there's a save button, and that tells you about the app as well. And I think that probably got a lot of downloads as well. But yeah, the email was really big. And then I think there was another spike just as we came to the start of term, George?
Yeah, that's right. It was a significant spike on the first day, which I guess perhaps was word of mouth a bit. Perhaps students just getting organised and looking on the Play Store itself and Apple Store to see if there was any ads. And yeah, but there was a huge jump on the first day of the semester.
And did you put ads inside your app?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we've got these things that were called ads. So with the orientation guys, their main driver was not to give people maps or to give people their timetable. It was to make it easier in your first weeks to understand Massey and what's there and so on. So one of their main goals was actually to tell people the stuff that's out there that they don't know about, like help with accommodation, Centre for Teaching and Learning, help, just to get through your papers and so on. So we had the choice between making it sort of like a website. You could navigate some information, or putting these things called ads in there, which aren't really adverts, but they're just sort of awareness. So we went with that sort of internal system of little adverts that pop up, rather than sort of actually advertising for goods and services and stuff. And I think, I don't know, we haven't really measured if they're working or not, but I guess they're probably getting lots of impressions, at least anyway.
Okay.
And they're catered per campus, aren't they, Dan? So
Yes, yeah, so we can. Yeah, Wellington can get different ads from Albany and so on.
Okay. So I've got a question for George. What did you enjoy the most about the coding experience?
Well, in terms of the whole development experience, obviously sort of getting your app on the device at the first time is satisfying, seeing it in action, and also obviously released on the App Store. I mean, it's a sense of achievement once it's up there. But in terms of actual coding, in terms of this project, it's probably like the maps integration was enjoyable because it was something new. So that's using Google Maps API. So effectively we're showing Google Maps within the app, and then we overlay it with points for where buildings are, rooms, or things like that. So yeah, and obviously you can also see where you are on the map, and so there's uses GPS for that. Yeah.
And Dan, what was the most rewarding part of the whole development? Because you saw it from beginning to end.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, getting a 5-star review is awesome. Getting 1-star reviews not so great, but I think we're average of 4.1 at the moment, so that's better than we imagined. Hitting 1,000 downloads was really cool. And I'm yet to actually see anyone walking around using it, but that would be pretty cool as well. Well, I have seen one person walking around using it, but he was having a bit of connection problems at the time. So, yeah, it's the feedback to see that it didn't flop, that people downloaded it, installed it, have kept it installed, keep using it, and we're getting the occasional bit of feedback about it. So, really to see it being used, yeah.
Yeah, like, seeing obviously, the Google Store reviews come in with people generally, comments and saying it's a great app. It's good because obviously there's a lot of competition out there, and people have high standards now to that. So Massey app's doing really well. And obviously, like Dan said, seeing the number of downloads is always great, and they go up and up. We're over 3,500 now, so that's pretty satisfying. And when you consider that we're our market is just Massey students, so that's quite a high percentage, really.
So
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of staff have downloaded and installed it as well, just because we called it Massey Uni, and I think they think it's great. But there's been feedback from staff that the maps are good, which is surprising because you'd think they'd know where everything is.
Yeah. So you've mentioned the design part, that you're going to get graphical designers. So this question follows up on that. What's the plan for the future from here on with the app?
Oh, yeah. Probably start work on the 13 features that we didn't build into it. And yeah, get the graphic design involved. There's such a long list of features, I can't even think of what they are. And then the ones that people suggest are different to those as well. So I'd like to think that because we've got so many downloads, there's going to be lots of people coming up with suggestions for features. Sort of, I would like this as a user, but also Massey departments who are saying, right, I need to get this to my students. So can we do it through the app? There's lots of staff features that are being suggested as well. So that's sort of a balance between what we do for students and staff. But I mean, there's definitely going to be future versions.
It's good to know. So these are more, I've got two more general questions. So what's the 3 bits of advice that you would like to bestow on future app developers? Because we're asking the students now to build their own apps.
Definitely, the main thing is you've got to get into the head of why someone would want to use something on their mobile phone, because tablets can browse the web really easily. Lots of people have got tablets. People are using computers all the time. So what can you do that people want to do on the go and may not even have an internet connection? What can you get someone that's really cool that is on their device? And, just look at the types of apps that you're addicted to and what's great about those. And sometimes they're really simple.
That's good advice. Anything from you, George?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's kind of following on from what Dan said, but you've got to be a bit careful that you're actually providing, some actually type of functionality in the apps. Obviously, there's a large number out there that just provides some static information, which is, you might as well just do a mobile web app, so responsive websites that. You've got to really think about what functionality you can offer, and I guess it comes down to that, whether you need the app to work offline or access hardware on the device and things like that, and stability, I guess. So that's probably the main one. Make sure you're building something that people want, and and also I guess there's so many different ways of undertaking mobile development. You've got to really look what your what devices you want to focus on, and then work out your approach. Like we do cross hybrid development, so that way we can write that pretty much once and run it on Android and iOS, and then we use a whole lot of frameworks on top of that to make development easier. And basically, that's all about speeding up development and not requiring so many developers. There's just the two of us at the moment, and and so we've got a number of apps to maintain now, so we've got to make sure we and utilise, build on the other work other people have done to make be able to build these apps development as we can.
I'd also say, like, UI-wise, don't reinvent the wheel. So just copy stuff off other apps. If you like the way that some apps done some UI stuff, just copy it, and make it as cool and as usable as you can, because mobile phones bring a whole new dimension to usability difficulties, because you've got to get your fingers to the buttons, and things you've got to work really smoothly on the phone.
Yeah, actually, a couple more tips on that. Yes, obviously, there's quite a few UI frameworks. We use jQuery Mobile, and that just really speeds up development. You can use their controls and things. And the other one is, obviously test on a wide range of devices. And for instance, quite a few of the issues we had was not so much between iOS and Android, but between different OS versions, so different versions of Android, for example, which there's a few browser quirks and things we have to work around. So, you could sort of test devices or use emulators, so that when you release your app, you're hopefully not going to get as bad reviews for it not working on phones.
How well do the emulators work?
A whole host of. Sorry, what's that?
How well did the emulators work? Because I never really used them. I just used the actual devices. Could you sort of rely on the different emulators for different versions of stuff?
Well, we particularly used the emulators where we had sort of version-specific bugs. So we would, I guess, test on our. Well, first we would test on Chrome, because we were writing HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, so we could do that within a browser, and then we'd eventually test on devices that we have. We've got about 7 or 8 devices here, and then if we hit particular problems, especially the testers were good at trying it out on Android versions and things, and then we would use the emulators so that as developers we could reproduce those bugs and things. But for us, generally it's much quicker to throw it on a device while we're testing. Yeah. So the emulators kind of for the last resort, but definitely helpful.
So our last question is, what is your favorite app that you're using every day? And you're not allowed to say the Massey app.
That's really tough, because I think for me on my little Android, I've got Feeder, which is just a news feeds thing, and that's just really simple. It works. It lets you control lots of UI settings. You can make the fonts bigger, smaller. You can rename things and stuff. I use that a lot. And Twitter, but I hate the Twitter app. It's just so not well thought out. They just haven't put enough effort into looking at how people use it, and it takes up too much screen space just with the stuff around the edge that you never use. So Feeder's my favourite.
And for me, definitely the app I use most often is the stuff.co.nz app. It's catch up on news and just simple to use and quick, and it's fun. Really good on that all the time, checking what's going on in the world.
Well, thank you guys for your time. We're going to end the recording now, so thank you.
Cheers, Hannah. See ya.
Cool.